Hey everybody, this is Peter and welcome to my kitchen today. Well, today I'm going to be making something kind of fun. It is pizza bread. Did you say pizza? Did you say bread? I said pizza bread. Is it a flat bread that looks like pizza? It is not. It is actually an artisan loaf bread made with some of the pizza ingredients inside. Let me show you how to do this. It's really simple. Let's go. Okay, let me show you how to do this. Now, it's cold where I am today. I'm in Oklahoma and I think it's about 10 degrees outside. So the kitchen is around 70. So just to keep everything going warm, I'm going to put the bowl in the microwave for about 45 seconds. So let me do that. Okay, now the purpose of warming up the bowl is, as I've said before, is to keep all the ingredients kind of warm. As we add different ingredients into the bowl, it's going to be cooling down the bowl. So that's why we're going to preheat the bowl a little bit, but that's because it's very cold outside and a little cool here in my kitchen. Okay, let's go over our list of ingredients. First of all, we're going to need 12 ounces, about 340 milliliters of warm water, about bath temperature. So we'll add that right in. Next, I'll be adding in some Italian seasonings. Now, this isn't a pizza bread, so adding some Italian seasonings kind of makes sense, right? Have about a teaspoon and a half of Italian seasonings. You can use any type of Italian seasonings that you like. Next, we're going to be adding in about a teaspoon and a half of salt. Now, I use sea salt, and so I'll add that right here. And here's where you have to make up your decision of how fast do you want to make this bread. Now, with a lot of no-knead recipes, you mix up the dough and you let it sit for like overnight, 8 to 12 hours. However, you can speed up the process by the amount of yeast that you use. I want this ready in about 2 hours. I'm going to be using a teaspoon and a half of rapid rise yeast. If you want to let this sit overnight, for example, you want to make this and have it for tomorrow's dinner, you could actually make this and just use a quarter of a teaspoon of rapid rise yeast and then let it sit on your counter overnight covered with plastic. So I'm going to be putting in, for me today, a teaspoon and a half. There's a teaspoon and just about half, don't have to be exact, of yeast. That's a rapid rise yeast. All right, let me mix all this up. What you want to do is you want to mix up in the water the yeast until the yeast pretty much dissolves. You don't really want it to be clumpy. Just kind of keep on going until that yeast gets dissolved pretty well. Looking good. All right. Now I'm going to add in about 1 teaspoon of sugars, white sugar, and that's just going to help the yeast along. So I'll mix that in a little bit with all of that. Now I'm going to be putting in 1 tablespoon, more or less, of olive oil. Use a good quality olive oil because it is a tasting element of the bread. So you want to make sure that you're using a good quality olive oil. Now, by the way, I'm using a dough whisk, and that's what this looks like right here. You can use a spatula such as this one. If you do, use the stick into the spatula to move things around like you see me doing here. If you use this side, the dough is just going to clump up on here. So just use the stick side and you'll be fine. Now the next thing we're going to be doing is measuring the flours. And today I'm using 3 cups of bread flour and then half a cup of whole wheat flour. The reason I'm doing whole wheat is simply to give it a little more flavor. That's all I'm doing. You can use all bread flour if you want. 420 grams, that's what we're after. So I'm doing about 380 grams of the bread flour, and then I'm going to be putting in about 60 grams of the whole wheat flour. Right now I have 380 on the scale, and I'm just going to put enough in to go to 420. And there we go, 420. All right, I'll set this over here. All right, now I'm just going to mix up the flours. And now I'll just start adding those into our water mixture down below. I do add a little bit at a time. I don't add everything in at one time. Helps to get hydrated a little quicker. All we're trying to do now is just get that dry dough mixed in with the wet. And in about 2 more seconds, I'm going to switch gears and go to my spatula so that I can go around the edges like this and just scoop in whatever's remaining into the ball of dough. And just turn that in and incorporate that. You want to continue until you see no more dry flour down below. Okay, now take your spatula and reach down below and just simply pull the dough over itself and press down. Turn the bowl. All we're doing here is doing some minor folds. Not really kneading, we're just folding the dough on top of each other, and that's going to help it get stronger, and it's going to help build up the gluten. I do that about 4 to 6 to 8 times. Just keep on going around, fold it in. We are finished with that process. Pretty simple, right? Okay, let me get some plastic put on here. By the way, do not use a kitchen towel on top of this because the dough, if it expands a lot, it's going to be sticking to your kitchen towel. So just put a piece of plastic on top. Okay, we have the bowl covered with the plastic. Now I'm going to let this sit on my kitchen counter for about 2 hours. And then it's going to double in size. And when it doubles in size, we can go ahead and move on to the next step. Okay, let me show you the rest of the ingredients we're going to be using today. Here I just have some olives. I'm using a small olive, green with a pimento in the middle. You can use larger olives if you're going to do that. You want to be sure to break them up a little bit. And here we have some low moisture mozzarella cheese. Now, what I want you to see is that these are in chunks. You don't want to be using the pre-shredded cheese in this because the shreds are just going to simply melt right into the bread and you're not going to be tasting any of the mozzarella because it's just too fine. So I use here about 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch cubes, and I just cut that right from a block of mozzarella cheese. Over here I have some tomatoes. These are sun-dried tomatoes. These are packed in oil, and then I drained the oil off. I put a paper towel in there to get as much oil as I could off, and then I used a pair of kitchen shears and just went in and chopped up those tomatoes. So those are going to be the rest of our ingredients. And last night I went ahead and I made up one of these doughs for us that we're going to be using today. So a little snowfall here on my countertop. And then I'm going to put a little bit of flour in here on top of the dough. That's just going to make it a little bit less sticky for us. Okay, you don't want to deflate. You do not want to deflate this as much as you can. Just use a dough scraper like this, and you're just going to try to get the dough out. And be gentle with it. Be gentle. And if you do that, it'll come out nicely, just like that. Looks great. I'm going to be putting on top of here more of the ingredients. So I'm just using my fingers, as you can see, and I'm just kind of pushing this out a bit and just stretching it out a little. All right, so just stretch out like that, stretch out like that, and I got a little too sticky right here, so we'll just put this here. A little bit of flour, not a lot, not a lot. Not that it really matters, but just, you don't want too much there. All right, that's looking really, really, really good. A little more there. All right, now we're going to come in and just simply put our olives and our other items here in the bread. And by the way, you can add anything to this that you want. Some other good examples might be prosciutto. Just chop up some prosciutto and put it into the bread. Some prosciutto with mozzarella. You could be putting in pepperoni. You could chop up some good quality pepperoni. So any kind of things you want to do, mushrooms, just whatever you like on your pizza. Black olives would be great. Now I will take the cheese and just put the cheese all the way around. And this is about 3 ounces, 3.5 ounces of cheese that I have cut from a block. About 3 ounces of that. Here we have some sun-dried tomatoes. So I've chopped those up so they're more fine. As you know, sun-dried tomatoes are pretty strong in flavor. Okay, there we go. All right, now take your fingers and put a little flour on your fingers. We're just going to try to pull this in from here on each side. Pull it in, and now we're going to make a bit of a ball. It's working very, very nicely, just like that. And just continue to bring this around. What we're doing now is building up what's called the gluten cloak. The gluten cloak, that's what this is called. So we're just trying to make this a little tight, okay? So the tighter your cloak, and you can see what I'm doing, I hope, using my hands, cupping it, turning this inside. Using my hands, coming around like this, cupping, turning it, and just pulling the top of this down. This looks absolutely fantastic. Really, really happy with this. Okay, let me get my hands cleaned up, and I'm gonna let this sit covered with plastic wrap that I have sprayed with a little bit of oil because I don't want this to be too tacky. I'm gonna let this sit here for about 30 to 45 minutes, let it do its thing. In the interim, I'm also going to be heating up the Dutch oven, which is here, into my regular oven, and we're gonna be preheating that to 450 degrees. Okay, it's been about 45 minutes and the Dutch oven has been preheating in the regular oven. So now I'm going to pull that out and we're going to put the bread into the Dutch oven. By the way, use pot holders. Super important to do because this stuff is screaming hot. The other thing I did while we were waiting is I saw that the bread dough was spreading out. Very, very common in a high hydration dough. So what I did, because I knew that I was going into a oblong pot, I went ahead and just put this into a bread pan just to hold it in a little bit. If you have a Banneton basket, you could do the same. You could also put the dough into the refrigerator and that will slow that down while the Dutch oven is heating up. All right, so I'm just gonna use the sling and just pop that right over here. Of course, take off the plastic. Now I'm going to score the dough. So what you want to do is just use a serrated knife like this or a bread lime, which is nothing more really than a razor. And just come along here and just score the dough. And this is going to give the air and the gas a place to escape. I'm not doing a great job, to be honest with you. You're just trying to cut a hole here about 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch thick. So I apologize. I should have done this prior to putting it in here. So I do apologize about that. Doing the best I can. All right, now we're ready to go back into the oven. There's just 2 more things that I'm going to do. One is spray a little bit of water onto here. And just for a little bit of decoration, I'm going to put a little bit of flour on top. Not very much. Create a snowstorm, okay? Not very much, not very much, not very much. This is just for decoration, okay? All right, there we go. Got all that done. I'm gonna put the top back onto the Dutch oven. Remember, it is very hot, and I'm gonna fold those in like that. Okay, now we're gonna go back in, lid on, for about 30 minutes. Then I'll pull it out, check to see where it's at. I like my bread a little more brown, so I'll put it back in the oven for probably 5 to 10 more minutes later. But right now we're just gonna put it back in for about 30 minutes, 450. Okay, my friends, it's been about 30 minutes. Now I'm gonna take the bread out of the oven and bring it up here and show you what we have so far. Be right back. Okay, let's take a look and see what we have so far. It's looking fantastic. Look at that. Look at that. Looking great. All right, perfect. All right, so it's doing really, really well. It's a little blonde for me and a little undone yet. So I'm gonna put it back in the oven for about 10 to 15 minutes, something like that. and we'll check and see how it's going. And believe it or not, I can see this bread moving. I've never seen that before, to be honest with you. But I can see the bread kind of expanding out. It's kind of cool. All right, I'm gonna put this back in the oven, 10 or 15 minutes, come back and show you the end. So here's how the bread turned out. Look at this. Look how fantastic that looks. It's a beautiful loaf of bread. You can see little tomatoes coming through there. Looks fantastic. Smells fantastic. Absolutely love it. All right, here's the hardest thing about baking bread. It's the waiting. So we're gonna have to wait about 2 hours for this bread to cool off so we can actually cut it. If we cut the bread right now, it's just gonna be all gummy on the inside. So all that steam inside needs to escape. It needs to cool down, develop its crumb, and we'll be back in about 2 hours and we'll cut the bread together and then I will show you the absolute end result. All right, see you in a few minutes. And there we have it, my friends. Look at that beautiful crumb on that bread. You can see the cheese in there. You can see the olives. You can see the sun-dried tomatoes. It looks absolutely beautiful and wonderful, nice crust on this. You can see some of the tomatoes here have come up on the edge and it looks fantastic. So super, super happy with that one. I'll put that there for you so you can see it. And there we have it. I want to say thank you again for watching the video today. I really do appreciate it. If you learned something today, please do me a favor. If you've not done so already, please subscribe to the channel. Hit that thumbs up button so more and more people will see the video. And thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time. Try the bread. By the way, all the ingredients is going to be down below in the description area. See you next time.